I'm ready to start here when it comes on, right? Good morning. Uh, Surgery went okay on my right shoulder yesterday. It's my right arm is in a immobility, an immobilizer, I guess they call it, and um, so it'll be that way for a while. So I'll probably be doing more devotions from in the house for a while than from out in the wood shop. And the wood shop is going to get pretty lonely for me, I'm afraid. But I'll have to go visit once in a while. Today we're going to finish the book of Judges. Uh, and chapter 19 begins, with the Levite's concubine. It starts out, there was in those days when there was no king in Israel. Again, that reminder about this king. And, to have a leader, someone with definite authority. But there was a certain Levite, not named, staying in the remote mountains of Ephraim. And he took for himself a concubine from Bethlehem in Judah. But she went away and was at her father's house and was there for a full 4 months, and so then he went after her. And he, bringing his servant and a couple of donkeys, and he went, and as they were going to leave the next day, her father talked him into spending another night since they had eaten and it was getting late. And this went on for a few days, and then in verse 10, the man finally wasn't willing to spend another day, this Levite. So they set out, and they got going a ways, and she said, let's go in here and stay in the city of the Jebusites. And he said, no, let's go on and we'll stay in Gibeah. And so, they went on the rest of the way to Gibeah. And no one took them in. They were at the fount in the middle of the city there, and no one had offered them a place to stay or any hospitality until a man came in into town and implored them then to come to his house, and he took care of. They told him, we have food for ourselves and hay for our donkeys, and they're fine. But so they went out to this man's house. Meanwhile, some of the inhabitants of that city found out that they were there, and they went out and kind of surrounded this man's house and demanded that the man who lived there would send the Levite, the man, out so that they could have sex with him. And the man says that no, that's terrible things to think about, and yeah, it is. But that's not at all what God would have, and we find that more, and we've seen that before too. But anyway, the concubine is sent out, and these men rape and ravage her through the night, and in the morning she comes back home and lays down and dies. And the Levite takes her, loads her on the donkey, and goes home. And then he, just a gross thing, it says he cuts her up and sends one piece to each of the 12 tribes of Israel. And then in verse 20, chapter 20, the different tribes of Israel come together, and because they are appalled by what happened, as they rightly should be. And they call an army together. And they ask what happened, and the Levite tells them, and they go then against the people of Gibeah. And to start with, they've got a big army. But the army of the Benjaminites that are at Gibeah come out, and for the first couple days of the battle, inflict great damage to this army of the rest of the Israelites. And here again, now it's Israelites against the Benjamites. So, one of the tribes of Israel. But it's, and it's, we had no king to judge us, no king to lead us, and it kind of that way. But on the third day, the Israelites ask God each day, shall we attack or not? And yes, God says yes. And they do. The first 2 days, as I said, don't go so well for the Israelites. But the third day, the Israelites set a trap, and they basically kill all but 400 of the men of the Benjaminite tribe. And those 400 men, or 600 rather, turn and flee out into the wilderness to the rock of Rimmon, and they stay there for 4 months. And the rest of the Israelites, I'm in verse 47 and 48 now of chapter 20, but the rest of the Israelites go back and turn against the children of Benjamin and strike them all down with the sword, the men and the beasts and all who were found, and they set fire to the city. So the men of the tribe of Benjamin, other than these 600 war soldiers that flee, have been totally destroyed, wiped off of the face of the earth, so to speak. And then the rest of as the Israelites gather again in chapter 21, there had been a pledge, that none of them would give their daughters to any of the men of Benjamin as wives, because of this terrible thing that the Benjaminites had done. But then they set up an altar and they offer thanks and praise to God, and then they ask, well, what is it that we should do for the Benjamites? It's not right that one whole tribe should be destroyed. It's not right. And so they talk about, verse 16, what shall we do for wives for those who remain, since the women of Benjamin have all been destroyed? And it says there must be an inheritance for the survivors of Benjamin. That we just can't destroy one of the tribes of Israel. But they come and they have a plan to select certain women and let the Benjaminites, have these women then as their wives. And there are 400 women that are selected to then go and become the women of the Benjaminites. And this chapter, this book of Judges, ends with this phrase: in those days there was no king in Israel. Everyone did what was right in his own eyes. In chapter 17, I think it was in 17. Get back to it. Chapter 17, verse 6. In those days there was no king of Israel, and everyone did what was right in his eyes. It was just like, since they didn't have a king to lead and to guide, a king to enforce the rules, that everybody just did whatever they thought was okay. And how much of that do we see today? That people say, well, if I can do whatever I want, it's kind of, then as long as it doesn't hurt anybody else. But so often doing anything you want is a negative influence on somebody. And if you have no laws, if you have no conscience, if you have no sense of right and wrong, and you just do whatever, I mean, what would society be like, really? What would society really be like if everybody just did whatever they want? I mean, we find a lot of deadbeats that are like that. Well, I don't want to work. I don't want to this. I don't want to. But I'm sure grateful to receive all the money that I can from wherever. All the handouts and stuff. And if everybody did what they want, I mean, it wouldn't be so good. I mean, we need the discipline of the law. We need the discipline of daily work. We need the discipline of that love and community set and guide for us. That what we do needs to care for ourselves, our neighbors, and our God, our country, our world. But to think about doing whatever we want is a foreign idea to me. But there are getting to be too many people in the world that feel that way. And that's, I think, one of the big reasons of the wars. I mean, they want more. They're not happy with what they have, and it's just like this final story in the book of Judges, that this Levite goes and finds a woman, and then she runs home to dad, and he goes back again, to bring her back into his household. And on the way back, this horrible tragedy happens. These men of the city, first they want him, want the Levite, and that would be doing whatever they want, and it's just so wrong to think about doing whatever you want. And then this group of men, did they have any thought or concern for the woman, for the Levite, for the owner of the house, for God? Did they have any concern or thoughts for anybody? No, they were doing what they wanted. And what happened? That an innocent woman was killed because of that. And then the whole tribe of Benjamin, think of all of that whole tribe of Benjamin was virtually exterminated, with the exception of 600 men. And then it had to be rebuilt again. All because the people said, we have no king, so we can do whatever we want. That's not what God would have us do. God would have us know the laws, follow the rules, and be a society that works together and functions together for the good of all.